Straight ahead on CCX News, a Brooklyn Park family's adoption story.
And we thought there has to be a better way for other families to adopt.
Their idea to help other families afford adoption. Plus, in the aftermath of the Florida school shooting, Wayzata schools take a closer look at its crisis plans. And more apartments ready to go up in a high-demand area of Maple Grove. CCX News starts right now. We begin with a financial problem associated with heartbreaking results.
The cost of adopting children can actually keep people from adopting. The prices can vary, but numbers from Adoptive Families magazine says international adoptions can cost $44,000 and are expected to go higher this year, while domestic newborn adoptions can cost around $40,000. A Brooklyn Park couple knows those costs firsthand and has tried to do something about it. Shannon Slatton has more.
Ready, set, go.
There's never a dull moment in the Bullock house. 7-year-old Alea and 4-year-old Annika keep life busy and their parents on their toes.
Oh wait, did mommy win?
Nicole and Jeff wouldn't have it any other way. When they married 11 years ago, they knew they wanted to build a family.
Thought about the traditional way like everybody else does. And we kept going, you know what? We really feel a call, we feel a burden, we feel a tug to go in another direction.
So they became foster parents first, then went a step further.
And then we met our oldest daughter. So it turned from foster care to adoption about 3 months into having her, and here we are.
I got a giant.
A few years later, they had the opportunity to adopt Alea's sister, Annika. But the price to adopt a newborn was high.
I told Nicole, well, I'll work 5 jobs if I have to. She's our daughter, and we're going to make this happen.
Instead, the couple sold their Brooklyn Park home and used equity and savings to pay for the adoption.
And we thought there has to be a better way for other families to adopt, and also thought, what about families who don't have resources? What about families who would be great homes for kids but don't have $30,000 sitting around the house?
Jeff works for Firefly Credit Union and came up with an idea to make a credit line available for families who want to adopt.
How many does this cost?
Firefly launched that line in January.
And the process could go up to 2 years long. So as you need the money, you can take it and you only pay interest on the money you've used. So that made it affordable.
The Bullocks would sell their house all over again to pay for their daughter's adoption. But they are thankful other families won't have to.
I really hope we can help families get over that barrier, get over that intimidation, to reach out and connect with other children who need a home.
In Brooklyn Park, Shannon Slatton, CCX News.
Jeff has been consulting with credit unions across the country and hopes other institutions can offer the same credit line.
In other news, in the wake of the Florida school shooting, board members in the Wayzata School District have reviewed crisis plans with local police. Police offered reassurance that local efforts seem to be ahead of the response in Florida. One recent change for schools during a crisis is moving from a lockdown mode to run, hide, and fight.
We're empowering the staff to utilize their discretion based on the training they've received and the students to make some decisions, under stress, but to best protect themselves and those around them.
That training is ongoing. One school official says they are having age-appropriate discussions with students about how they react in different situations.
Brooklyn Park has approved a salary increase for its city manager, bumping it up close to a state cap on city employee pay. The City Council agreed to increasing City Manager Jay Strobel's annual salary to roughly $171,000 a year, a $5,000 increase. But the increase didn't come without discussion. Some wondered whether the increases are sustainable. When Strobel started 2 years ago, he was making $154,000.
This has nothing to do with our city manager. This has to do with the pay structure in which we have in place for our city manager. It doesn't make sense.
I think that, as it's pointed out, we need to also stay competitive, and that this pay is consistent with city managers in similarly sized communities.
To go above the cap, Brooklyn Park would have to apply for a special state waiver, and according to Strobel, the average salary for city managers across the Midwest is $182,000.
Meanwhile, Brooklyn Park continues to tweak its apartment action plan. The city surveyed residents last summer, receiving input from African and Latino groups on how to improve apartment conditions. Brooklyn Park has more than 6,400 apartment units, almost a quarter of the housing stock.
Balance is a big deal related to housing. We like to have a good mix of different housing products and types. So affordable housing's some of the housing we want to be affordable, other housing, some of our newer apartments are more move-up style apartments or for folks that are looking for different types of housing products.
Brooklyn Park recently approved a proposal to build a 300-unit market rate apartment complex south of Highway 610 and east of Zane Avenue.
Hundreds of luxury apartments are planned for a highly visible corner of Maple Grove. The Planning Commission recommended approval this week for the second of 4 apartment buildings proposed for the corner of Arbor Lakes Parkway and Hemlock Lane North. The second building calls for 123 units. It's part of a larger project called the Reserve at Arbor Lakes. The first building has been completed and is scheduled to open on April 1st. When you fill out your taxes next year, they will be different after federal tax changes.
And those changes will also impact Minnesota's income tax. House Majority Leader Joyce Peppin says tax conformity is a top priority for state lawmakers.
I think the number one thing that the legislature will have to deal with is the changes to the federal tax law. Very exciting to have tax cuts. We provided about $600 million last year in tax cuts, but it will create some difficulty in trying to kind of reconcile how we do things. They change some deductions. So our number one priority will have to be to kind of fix that and make sure that people aren't harmed in any way and that they're able to take advantage of the tax cuts the federal government passed.
A lot of education you're expecting with this. A lot of your work is going to be related to education. Is that right?
Absolutely. I think legislators are just now trying to completely learn of what the impacts will be on constituents throughout the state. And so we'll spend a lot of time getting people up to speed on the different deductions that have changed, and we'll need to pass a tax conformity bill so that we can be in alignment with the federal government.
One of your top priorities is going to be continued work on transportation for the state, correct?
Absolutely. We were thrilled with being able to provide about $300 million in transportation dollars. And last year it was kind of a record high, and but there's still issues throughout the state. I've personally been working on a few issues in just this region, Brockton Avenue, finishing 610, and I know other legislators have funding. Obviously there's some bottleneck situations in this northwest corridor, and so we'll be looking at that, and of course transportation dollars throughout the state, amongst other things.
What do you think is going to be the biggest surprise this session? Any predictions?
Well, I think that the biggest surprise we'll see what happens with the Senate. We currently have at the 34-33, and the biggest surprise will be to figure out what happens with the President of the Senate, Michelle Fischbach, and whether or not she's allowed to do both jobs, which would leave the Senate 34-33 Republicans, or whether she's not, which would mean 33-33, a deadlocked Senate. And if that happens, it will obviously slow things down because you have neither party in charge.
Still ahead, how the arts have become a major focus at Plymouth Middle School. That's next in School Spotlight.
Plus, see where your school's girls basketball team stacks up for the upcoming playoffs.
But first, the big melt continues, a high near 40 on Wednesday.
When Plymouth Middle School students wanted to show off their school, they pointed directly to the arts.
Our reporter Shannon Slatton shines a light on Plymouth Middle School for today's School Spotlight.
When we set out for Plymouth Middle School to find out what makes being a Panther so great, boy, were we in for a surprise.
Our academics, absolutely, we do not lower our expectations, but today I wanted to highlight the wonderful things our students are doing, the creativity they have, and how that helps motivate them to be in school and want to come to school each and every day.
So we got to see some of that creativity right outside the front office as groups of students showed off the best of the arts at Plymouth Middle School. This group of students auditioned to be a part of an after-school singing group that's been a tradition at this middle school for 30-plus years.
It's like a lot more fun than people realize. We really do what we can to improve the skills that they have in their craft of music, but also to amplify their voice.
Teachers in every subject find just the right angle to pique students' curiosity and challenge them further in their craft.
She loves to put in difficult pieces, and I love the challenges.
They always want you to strive for really big things, and they just want to help you succeed in life, and they want to see you do big things.
Students in this music class gravitated toward learning a Coldplay song. They've discovered learning how to play with one another is often the toughest challenge.
I decided to write a piece because that would be cool.
When this group of orchestra students couldn't find just the right piece of music, they decided to compose their own.
It's one thing that a bunch of different kids can come together and do.
A lot you can participate in. It's definitely beneficial.
But there's plenty of opportunities in art, too, where students can stand out for the messages they create. Teachers find the right balance of pushing students, yet encouraging creativity.
They help a lot because they teach you new things and new tactics to making more creative art and higher quality art.
You really get to be creative in there because there's so many opportunities. There's no limitations and no one's judging what you make and what you don't make.
So we made a little corner here.
Well, I like to teach a lot of time management stuff. They have a due date for their projects. I hold them accountable for making sure that they have a goal to reach each day, and they need to keep track of their progress. So time management's a big one.
There's art and woodshop class too.
I like to make stuff, and it's a great skill for later in life.
Where students learn precision, and in this lesson, a little economics too.
We're going to do mass production to see how many boxes we can make and then sell them at lunch.
It's really fun to see everyone participate in stuff, and that's what I think our school does the best from the rest.
You can feel the energy inside this middle school, all channeled into educating students and encouraging creativity in so many ways.
There's just so much excitement when they come in the door, and they're excited to be here. I know some schools struggle a little bit with attendance. Plymouth Middle School does not struggle with that. Kids want to be here, and that makes us special.
In Plymouth, Shannon Slatton, CCX News.
Well, still ahead, a brand new beer and wine tasting event to support a good cause.
But first, the Wayzata boys hockey team gets set to face Edina in the Section 6 championship. John Jacobson has a preview coming up next.
I'm John Jacobson with sports. Section championships are this week in boys hockey. 2 local teams will play in section finals in Class AA, including Wayzata. Jay Wilcox has more on the Trojans.
It's back to a familiar spot for the Wayzata boys hockey team, Section 6AA final. It's the 3rd straight season that the Trojans have qualified for the title game.
Our #1 goal of the season was to get to this game, set our regular season up in the playoffs for that. And it's a 1-game deal now at Mariucci, and our guys, we got some experience there just like they do. And
3rd seed Wayzata edged Blake 5-3 in the quarterfinals and then beat Cretin 3-2 in the semis. The Trojans are playing well.
We've had some downs this season, of course, losing a couple games that we probably shouldn't have, but when it comes to playoffs, Pat just gets us focused every game, and we just think every game we just believe we can win. So
next up, a very talented Edina team that defeated Wayzata twice during the season.
I mean, they're a really good team. They got 3 good lines. They got solid D. We're just going to come out with the same plan. We got to score first. We just got to shut down their top guys. That's going to be the plan, and hopefully we can do it.
I think it's just the biggest thing is just not giving up odd man rushes and, playing our style of play, meaning puck control and, staying out of the box, obviously. Just, we don't want to play a power play penalty kill matchup against them. We want to play 5-on-5, but we just got to keep, a 3rd man high and just keep them all in front of us, and hopefully we can wear them down by the 3rd.
While they are the underdog Wednesday, the Trojans have knocked Edina out in the past 2 section tournaments. They're shooting for a 3-peat. Jay Wilcox, CCX Sports.
Wayzata and Edina face off at 6 p.m. Wednesday at Mariucci Arena. You can see tape-delayed coverage of the game Thursday night at 10 p.m. on CCX channels 799 and 12 and online at ccxmedia.org. We'll hear from the Maple Grove Crimson about their Section 5AA final Wednesday starting at 4 on CCX. The playoffs tip off this week in girls basketball. Several local teams are high seeds in their sections. Champlin Park is the #2 seed behind Centennial in Section 5-4A. Then it's Roseville and Park Center. Osseo is the 8th seed. In quarterfinal games Wednesday, Osseo is at Centennial. Park Center hosts Moundsview and Champlin Park hosts Spring Lake Park. The semifinals are Saturday at Anoka High School. In Section 6-4A, Hopkins earns the top seed with Wayzata 2nd. South and St. Louis Park round out the top 4. Armstrong is the 6th seed. Quarterfinals are also Wednesday in this section. Hopkins hosts Washburn. Armstrong plays at South, and Wayzata is home to face Southwest. The semifinals are Saturday at Roosevelt High School in Minneapolis. Maple Grove is in Section 8 4A. They're the number 2 seed behind St. Michael Albertville. The Crimson host a quarterfinal game tonight, Tuesday, as they host Elk River in a rematch of the team's regular season finale. A win would put Maple Grove into Saturday's semifinals. Cooper is now in Class 3A. The Hawks are the number 1 seed in Section 6, while Konya is second, followed by Benilde and Orono. Cooper has a bye into the semifinals, which take place Saturday. In Class 2A, Maranatha is the 2nd seed and Providence number 7 in Section 5. Heritage, the number 2 seed in Section 4A. Speaking of Cooper's girls basketball team, they're aiming for their first trip to state in program history. On this week's Sports Jam show, we profile 2 of the Hawks leaders, the Wheeler sisters. Here's Jason Malillo with more.
Junior Asia Wheeler and her younger sister Kiara are the Hawks' leading scorers at 14 points a game. Asia is a versatile guard who's especially hard to stop when she attacks.
She drives to the basket very well. I mean, she's just a hard driver. It's hard to guard her when she's going coast to coast.
Freshman Kiara, Mimi to her teammates and coaches, controls the middle for Cooper. She's an excellent rebounder and gets a lot of second chance points for the Hawks.
She just knows when to jump. Her timing is perfect.
She's always in the right spot at the right time, always.
I box them out because, you know, people only really expect you to box out on defense, but if you box out on offense, you get the rebounds, you know when the shots go up to go for it.
Watch the rest of the Wheeler story and more on Sports Jam through Wednesday at 3:30, 6:30, and 9:30 p.m. here on CCX. That's it for sports. Mike and Alex, back to you.
All right, up next, party for your taste buds.
Sampling of food, beer, and wine for a good cause when we come back.
Well, finally, your chance to sample many of the local craft beers and wines.
Breweries such as Omni and Alloy Brewing will be at the Maple Grove Community Center Friday night for the first annual beer and wine tasting event put on by the Maple Grove Lions. More than a dozen different breweries, wine bars, and restaurants will be taking part in the fundraiser to benefit the Maple Grove community.
Whether it's the schools or whether it's the city or whether it's the playground, the Lions Club just does a ton of things to help the city out with donating their time and their resources.
Tickets are $25 in advance on the Maple Grove Lions website or $30 at the door. And that's all the news for us. Thanks so much for joining us.
And we'll see you back here again Wednesday starting at 4.